Hey everyone, in this video we're going to make the Fallout 4 environment look naturally better on the Xbox and PC using Retexture mods. Like many of my videos, the idea comes from you guys. Shout out to Spiff for the idea, and also one of my earliest subscribers, Retzko, for a big list of Retexture mods. So what does making Fallout 4 look naturally better even mean? Well, it means that the point of this video is going to be a load order focused on making the environment in Fallout 4 look much more enhanced, while still retaining the same look and feel as the vanilla game. We're not going to go crazy and totally change the entire environment like we do in most of these videos. Like no adding new trees here, no snow, no zombies, no deserts. We just simply want to make the game look better. And perhaps how it should have been, am I right? None of these mods require DLC, except one which is an optional grass mod, although DLC versions of these mods will be linked if available. And another thing you might notice is that we aren't going to retexture smaller things like one-off objects. For example, we won't be including mods that simply retexture like one vault suit or one gun, because there are way too many of those to put in a video in a realistic amount of time, so we will just be trying to focus on the main stuff. As always, all mods featured in the video will be in the video description below, with links and timestamps so you can easily find them. Lastly, be sure to refer to the pinned comment for the load order, mods that couldn't fit in the description, updates, or anything else that might be important to the video. You might also find it helpful to pause occasionally throughout the video so you can look at comparisons for longer. Oh yeah, you might notice my voice may sound a little different, and some of the text I use on screen, like the ice lettering I always used, have changed as well. I recently got a new computer because my old one literally, and I can't even make this up, literally died in the middle of making this project. So now I'm using a new editing software, so bear with me while I get used to things, but that's a conversation for a different video. So you will still see some of those old texts in this video, as well as some new ones because my new software doesn't have the same ones as the old one, so if you notice some weird stuff like that, that's why. So all of that said, let's get started. The first mod featured will be natural landscapes. The mod retextures basically every landscape subject around the Commonwealth to a much more detailed and realistic texture. I will show you direct comparisons with the vanilla game here, and as you can clearly tell, the detail is vastly improved and representative of what things would actually look like. The thing I like about this mod the most is that it adds substantially more detail without going over the top and sharpening things too much, which is nice because it gives the mod a far more natural look. Not only does this mod cover landscapes, it also covers a variety of other objects too. It's easy to spend a ton of time looking at all the differences this mod makes, but in the interest of time we have to continue on. Overall, this mod alone will honestly give you that more enhanced Commonwealth look nearly all by itself, but we're not stopping here. A good follow-up is natural rocks. This is the optional addition to natural landscapes that retextures rocks and cliffs, and just like in that mod, this is done very nicely without going overboard. In the vanilla game, the rocks seemed a little flat and low quality, kind of like a lot of things did. Did I say that out loud? And with this mod running, that is totally changed. Overall, this is a very nice complement to natural landscapes, and although it's not included in that mod, I definitely would not ignore it. Natural roads is next, and as you probably guessed, yes, this is part of the natural landscape series. Like the previous two mods, this is a great retexture that allows for a far more detailed look while still keeping things natural and like they belong in the game. The vanilla roads were really plain and washed out looking and really not detailed at all, and this mod will remedy that. I really like the color of the new roads in combination with the weather and atmosphere mod we're using here as well, but more on that later. I always felt roads were one of the biggest environmental enhancers, and for that reason, I would not leave this out. As an alternative, you can use dilapidated roads. There are two versions of this mod, charcoal and faded. However, because of a bug on the Bethesda website, they're both currently the same, and which version it is, I don't know. But the author is aware of this and will be fixing the issue if the Bethesda website will allow it. These mods retexture the roads to a far more weathered look, a look one would assume that years of decay and nuclear bombs would cause. The roads really pop with detail and give off that appearance of an actual wasteland. Coming up next is natural grasses and Groundcovers, another mod in the natural series and the only mod that requires DLC. This is a brand new mod that adds new region-based, lore-friendly grass into the game. I like how the grass is overgrown and flows in the wind and how the color is mixed with green and brown. To me, this is a nice balance between giving the environment some life while still keeping in mind that this is Fallout and things are still dead. Just be aware that grass mods have the potential to hit FPS pretty bad, especially for console, so just make sure you're using the mod in appropriate areas, like maybe disable it when going to the city or something. That will likely help if you're running into any problems. FlaconOil's Retexture project is next, and this mod is absolutely massive. In a nutshell, this mod retextures pretty much everything in the Commonwealth to a more detailed and natural look. It doesn't literally retexture everything, but it's pretty close to it. I think on the Nexus page I counted something like almost 180 retextures. Now this may be slightly different on Xbox in terms of the number of retextures, and of course the textures are going to be downgraded for space reasons, but it still doesn't make this mod any less epic. I can't possibly show you every retexture this mod has to offer in this video, just know that it basically hits everything. Now you might be wondering about load order with this since it retextures so many things, just be sure to refer to the load order I provided for you in the pinned comment. Overall, this is an incredible mod and an absolute staple for any retexture load order. Next up is Weather and Atmosphere, and the mod we'll be going with here is Natural and Atmospheric Commonwealth. This one has been featured several times on this channel, but it has for a reason. It's really good. Like, I want to use a different mod here for the sake of featuring new mods, but I can't in good faith ignore it for a video like this. This mod has tons of customizable options, so you can really tweak the weather and color balance of the game to your liking, making it almost like an ENB. Personally, I just keep it on the default setting because I like a more natural look to my game, but by no means am I saying you have to do that too, or even have to use this mod for that matter. Just follow what I did on screen here to set the default climate. You can do some super cool things with this mod like alter color saturation, exposure, color shades, interior and exterior lighting, toggle any weather, set various climates, and much more to basically do anything. So feel free to mess around with it to make it exactly what you want. I just really enjoy how this mod by default desaturates things and adjusts the lighting to make things seem more realistic and natural, which is the whole point of this video. And I know what you might be thinking, what about NAC X? Well, good thing you asked because we're going to talk about it. And the reason I'm mentioning this after NAC is because when I filmed for this video, NAC X wasn't out yet. Yes, I know that was a really long time ago, but this whole video was filmed with the original Natural and Atmospheric Commonwealth, and I wasn't about to refilm this entire thing for only a slight difference in the desired look. So to keep things brief, NAC X is a redone version of NAC with newer weathers and effects. The color presets are pretty nice too, but they're more or less similar to the original. The way you adjust the settings is by going into your apparel category in your Pipboy and selecting the settings from there, and it brings you to an on-screen menu that's pretty intuitive. From there, you can adjust pretty much anything you want, just like in the original NAC. I really like NAC X, and it's definitely different than NAC, but when I really got into the settings I was looking for, like as I mentioned earlier, an improved version of the vanilla game while trying to maintain the original feel of it, I more or less came out with the same look as the original NAC. Another thing to keep in mind is that NAC X is a larger file, so that might come into play for console. The way I see it is this: if you want a natural look like you're seeing in this video, and you want to keep things simple and just set it and forget it and save some space, then use the original NAC because the default climate that it prompts you to select upon downloading is actually perfect for this. But if you want to go a little deeper into individualized settings with new and improved weathers, a better settings menu, and more features, then use NAC X. The choice is yours. No More Fake Puddles is a simple but amazing mod that removes those ridiculous fake puddles that litter the wasteland highways. Those puddles never really made sense to me. I mean, I guess after it rains it would be okay for them to show up for a little while, but because they were just permanently there, they were more of an eyesore than anything, and this mod fixes that and just gets rid of them. It's really nice. Indubitable Ivy is next. It's a mod that retextures the ivy around the Commonwealth. There are 6 versions: Vibrant, Summer, Autumn, Spring, Dry, and Dead, all of which offer a different feel depending on what your goals are. Here's a side-by-side of all of them. You might want to pause here for a better visual because I'm not sure if this segment will provide you with enough time to inspect all of them. I really like how the new ivy looks. It's very organic and lively. Overall, this is a nice mod that helps upgrade the smaller details. I'm not going to tell you which one to choose. Personally, I've been using the dry version to kind of stay along that semi-living but mostly dead vanilla wasteland theme, but whichever one you pick, you can't really go wrong. They're all high quality and well made. For the next mod, we will be heading underground, and coming up next is Gritty Subway Stations. This is a super nice mod that greatly enhances the look of the subway stations. This mod was featured in the Metro video I did a while back, but I just had to bring it back for a video like this considering it's a perfect fit for the theme. The stations now look far more run down, more like you would expect after many years of neglect and damage. The textures here are highly upgraded while still maintaining a realistic, lore-friendly look. Overall, I really like this mod and love the direction the author went with it. This one is really well made, and yes, if you're wondering, this is fully compatible with Subway Runner, but we won't be getting into that. Coming up next and moving back above ground is CC's Realistic Stars. This mod overhauls the night sky and offers a far more realistic take on stars, as you would assume by the name. It might be a little hard to see this one on video, but there are way more stars in the sky. This is another time where pausing might be helpful, so you can look at this for a little bit longer. The stars are handmade by the author, which is always appreciated from an artistic standpoint, and they even flicker to offer a more realistic feel. The cool part about this mod is that it's compatible with mods that alter the moon. So a good follow-up here is Moon, beautiful replacement textures for all moon phases. Okay, let's just call it Moon. This is a nice mod that retextures all 8 moon phases with 2K versions. Obviously, it's not often we stare at the moon for extended periods of time in Fallout, but the mod is nicely made and complements realistic stars nicely. I of course recommend pausing here for further inspection if you so choose. As an alternative, you can use the mod Visible Galaxy 4K instead of realistic stars. You can use the moon retexture with this one as well, but the difference here is that this mod adds a massive arcing galaxy to the night sky. It's definitely a cool mod and a great alternative to realistic stars. These two mods are very different, but in a good way. I don't think one is necessarily better than the other here, but whichever one you decide to go with, I think you'll be happy either way. This one is definitely more noticeable, so maybe if you're looking for something more obvious, you might want to go with this one. There's also a faded version of this mod that is simply less bright, but I won't be showing it here. Just know that it's an option, but I will link it for you. Going from the sky to the sea, water enhancement textures, also known as wet, is up next. And to be clear, this mod is being showcased with the next mod, Vivid Waters, which is giving the water that super clear look, but more on that next. This is a nice mod that changes the surface texture of the water, enhances the flow, and improves splash effects. The water flows much nicer now with this mod active, and to me offers a more realistic take. One of the most noticeable changes with this mod are the splash effects. In the vanilla game, the splash effects were pretty weird looking, and this mod fixes that as they're definitely more natural now. Overall, this is a nice mod to improve the look and feel of the water around the Commonwealth, which brings us, like I said, into the next mod, Vivid Waters, which of course can be used with wet if you want. Vivid Waters is a great mod and is much different than wet. For instance, it doesn't change splash textures, but it will give us this super clean look. Now, in a vacuum, I think the water texture in this mod is cool, which is mainly why I'm including it, and what this mod doesn't do, things like alter splash effects, wet does do. So when used together, they make the water look like it came from a completely new game. Just be sure to load Vivid Waters after wet. The only downside to this mod is that the water always looks pretty busy, kind of like it's always windy. Now this does look good in some places like the ocean where it tends to be windy, so one would expect this and it looks great, but in other places where in theory it wouldn't be as windy like ponds and other small bodies of water, it can look a little too choppy. But it's not a big deal at all, and I certainly wouldn't let that deter you from using this mod. CC's improved Roadsigns is next. This is a small detail mod, but it's great for what it is. Roadsigns now look much better, or improved as the name would imply. The vanilla signs were pretty low detail, and this mod completely changes that. Now obviously this isn't a mod that's going to slap you in the face with how game changing it is, but it does make a difference since the signs are a pretty common thing throughout the wasteland. Overall it's well done and definitely deserves some attention. CC's UHD Pipboy is next, and it enhances the Pipboy to be higher quality using 2K textures. There's not really a whole lot going on here, but it does make the Pipboy look a little better. Although to be honest, the difference is pretty minimal, at least to me, but it's here if you want it. Pausing here might be a good idea. Vehicle Overhaul is next, and I have to tell you I absolutely love this mod. It's not purely a retexture mod, although it does retexture some vehicles, but it also adds new vehicles in. The mod aims to add service vehicles to the game like ambulances, police cars, and taxis. Here's a great example of what that mod does. You can see in the top left corner that car back there gets a retexture, and right in front adds a police car. And for continuity purposes, here's that car that was in the corner, so it does retexture some cars, but it also adds them too. Here's a taxi that mod added in, and it looks very good. This one is really well made and definitely worth the download. Next up is Sanctuary Revised. This mod changes the exteriors of houses, interiors, roofs, etc. to give the Sanctuary a 1960s to 1970s look. The changes are very clear and well made, and the mod even fixes 5 collapsed houses to a fully standing condition, which is pretty cool. The thing I like about this mod the most is that it still keeps the Sanctuary looking like it belongs in Fallout. The houses are nicely redone, but they're not over the top to a perfect pre-war state, so this mod isn't totally lore breaking, and that's a tough line to walk. So if you spend a lot of time in Sanctuary Hills, this is definitely a mod to consider using. Enhanced Flickering Firelight is next. This mod tweaks the lighting that fire emits. In the vanilla game, and this is per the mod page, most Firelight had the same radius of light emittance, which was set at 256, so that means oil lamps, barrel fires, and large fires all had the same light settings. So the radius of an oil lamp would be that of a barrel fire, for instance, which doesn't make a ton of sense. This mod changes that and makes different objects emit different amounts of light. So now the oil lamp radius is 128, barrel fires are 384, and large fires are 512. This is actually a really nice mod and makes our environment look a ton better, especially at night. Staying on the subject of light, well, rather the opposite I guess, is Smoother Sun Shadow. I've featured this mod a few times in the past, but I believe it's a good addition for this load order. In the vanilla game, shadows shifted very abruptly, which was pretty weird and unrealistic, and here you'll see an example of that. Last I checked, shadows definitely don't do that. With this mod active, sun shadows will now move nice and smooth like they do in real life. Again, a small detail mod, but it's one of those mods that you don't realize you need until you play with it, then you never play without it. Fun fact, this is actually one of my permanent installs. Up next is a sound mod. We've used a few of these in the past, but I picked a new one for this video just for the sake of picking something different, and for this we can use PTSD inducing weapon sounds. This mod changes the way guns sound to sound far better than they did in the vanilla game. To be fair, the vanilla gunshots weren't the worst I've heard in games, but they were far from great, let's be honest. I'll play you a few clips of the new sounds. I'll be right back. I think those sound pretty good, and in my opinion are an improvement over the vanilla game. The next several mods will be focused around combat, and up first is Fallout 4 Gore Overhaul. Although it sounds pretty self-explanatory, this mod is actually quite complex. It adds tons of new features that make the boring vanilla Gore far more interesting and realistic. Wounds are now much more detailed, they're more accurately color matched, the highlights and contrast are better, it adds bruises and cuts to bladed and blunt weapons, adds brains to exploded skull pieces, and far more. The vanilla Gore was pretty poorly done, and this mod is a major upgrade. A fantastic follow-up to this is Enhanced Blood Textures. This is another mod that has been on this channel before, and it has for good reason. It retextures blood to look much better, and adds tons of additional blood. And this isn't something that's barely noticeable, like this is a massive difference. The vanilla blood was super lame and didn't really show at all. Like in this clip here, there should be tons of blood pooling on the ground, yet there's literally none. But with this mod active, that is completely turned around into what it should be like. It's pretty intense. Blood Mist Overhaul is another excellent addition to this whole blood and gore thing. This mod adds a bloody mist effect to enemies where they get shot. I'll show it in slow motion here so you can see it better. I feel like showing this mod on video doesn't really do it justice, but it's super noticeable in person when playing. I'm definitely a fan of this one. Realistic Ragdoll Force is another good follow-up. I feel like I've featured this a million times on this channel, but it truly is a must-have in my opinion. It's not a retexture, but I think it works for this video. Basically, it just makes enemies actually, follow the laws of gravity when you kill them or blow them up with something. You know how sometimes in the vanilla game when you shoot someone they fly like 6 feet in the air? As funny as it can be, it's just not realistic, and this mod fixes that and makes enemies die in a more natural fashion and basically just slump over instead. Next is Dismemberment Overhaul. Again, like the last mod, this isn't new to the channel nor is it really a retexture, but for those who don't know, this mod allows you to shoot off enemy limbs without them dying. So if you happen to shoot a limb off your opponent, they'll run around with only one arm, for example, or if it's a leg, they'll fall to the ground and keep shooting at you. Kind of like the Last Stand perk in Call of Duty. Horrible memories, I know. But in all seriousness, this mod combined with the other combat mods make it almost impossible to go back to vanilla. Up next is Hello Kitty Minigun. The next several mods are reanimation mods that change the way some guns operate, which I think adds to the overall feeling of a visually improved Commonwealth. What I will end up doing here is just letting them play out for you in a direct side-by-side with the vanilla game. I don't really feel it's necessary for me to talk you through what's happening on screen since they're all entirely self-explanatory, but the list is as follows. Pistol Reanimation Pack, Revolver Reanimation Pack, 10mm Pistol Reanimation Pack, Reanimation for Combat Shotgun and Rifle, and Reanimation Pack for Submachine Gun. So I'll let those play out for you and I'll be back shortly. Okay, so those are the reanimations. You might have found some of them pretty cool. They don't add a ton to the game by any means, but they're definitely an improvement over the vanilla game animations. Next is Right-Handed Hunting Rifle. This mod makes hunting rifles work on the right side instead of the left. To me, it was pretty awkward in the vanilla game when your character would reload with the left hand. Now that is no longer. In my opinion, this is a far better way to use this gun. It just seems more natural. That is, unless you like left-handed rifles, then by all means ignore this one. But overall, it's a small change and, at least to me, it makes a big difference. The last weapon in combat mod we will be going over is See-Through Scopes. This mod adds new scopes to tons of different guns ranging from pistols, to rifles, to laser weapons. These scopes are a nice change from the vanilla game. Instead of scoping in and having to transition to a new screen, which is kind of a harsh transition, they now just pop right up without having to do that. This makes combat much more streamlined and smooth, making for a vastly upgraded experience. You can create these scopes at the weapons workbench and can upgrade them and customize them with a variety of different options. It's honestly hard to go back to vanilla after using these scopes. I highly recommend trying this if you enjoy combat. Ephla's unique chems is next. I know I said we wouldn't really be retexturing small things, but the next few mods retexture a ton of objects, and the objects they retexture are things we see all the time, so I gave them a pass. And you will probably find it helpful to pause occasionally so you can look at the comparisons for longer. Unique chems is really nice. It retextures chems to look far more interesting and realistic. I featured this mod in a video a very long time ago, and it still holds today as a fantastic chem retexture. I can't show you every single one here without taking up too much time, but they all look really nice and are certainly an improvement over the vanilla game. Ephla's unique first aid kits is a good follow-up here, and it retextures the various first aid tins around the Commonwealth. Like I said, I'd show a few of these small detail mods because they are things we see pretty frequently around the Commonwealth, so it makes sense to touch on them. Overall, they look pretty good and it's a nice change. Ultra realistic food is up next, and it retextures food to look far more interesting. The new textures are definitely more realistic in terms of what food containers would actually look like, and are certainly a higher quality. The old textures on food seemed a little low effort to me, and I feel they could have put a little more time into them, and this mod fixes that. Overall, with these last few mods, I'm pretty impressed with the amount of detail the authors put into them to give an upgrade to the small but very frequently used items. Ammo Retexture by Jorhadoq is next, I feel like I just butchered that, and if you see this, I am very sorry. Anyway, it's a mod that retextures ammo boxes. I really like how these ammo boxes look in comparison to the vanilla game. They definitely look like they're actually pre-war. Plus, the new boxes have variety and don't look like they all came from the same manufacturer. This mod retextures pretty much every ammo box, so I can't sit here and show you every single one individually without taking up too much of your time, but I can at least show you a handful to give you an idea of what this mod does. Overall, this is a very good mod and provides us with high quality retextures that make it hard to go back to vanilla. This is the last of the small detail mods for the video. Next we will be getting into a few miscellaneous type mods. Fallout Suite Soundtrack Extension mod is a great soundtrack mod that adds nearly 90 minutes of incredibly well made music to the game. I wish I could play some of the music for you guys on here, but the problem with these radio mods is that I could run into copyright issues that I really don't feel like dealing with, so it's not really worth risking. But this mod adds 19 awesome new tracks. However, it doesn't replace the old tracks either, which is really nice, so it blends very well. I highly recommend giving this a shot. Everyone's Best Friend is up next, and it's not a retexture, but it does offer a nicer experience when playing the game if you use companions. Simply put, this mod allows you to have dog meat plus a standard companion to roam the wasteland with you, instead of making you take either one or the other. To me, this mod makes sense, and if you like using companions and you like dog meat, then this mod might be for you. Full dialogue interface is a staple in pretty much every load order video I make, and for this video it doesn't necessarily visually improve the environment, but it does visually improve dialogue, and for that I think it's worth the mention. This mod simply allows you to see everything you're about to say on screen like it used to in the older Fallout games, instead of like an abbreviated version of the sentence like it was in the vanilla game. Sometimes it was even like one word, which I've said it before and I'll say it again, is completely ridiculous. Overall, this is a must-have and makes dialogue way better, and what it should be, to be honest. NPCs Travel is the last mod we will be going over for this video. No, it's not a retexture either, and yes, I have featured it like a million times on this channel, but again, that's for very good reason. This mod adds over 300 NPCs of all types to the game that roam the Commonwealth, Far Harbor, and Nuka World. You can trade with some of them, fight them, or simply just ignore them. I just think a mod like this adds a little more realism to the game for a better experience, because in my opinion, it would be unlikely that nobody else besides you would be traveling the wasteland, and this mod kind of takes care of that. So that will do it for making Fallout 4 look better. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like as it's an easy way to show support, and be sure to subscribe for more content just like this. Again, please refer to the pinned comment for the load order and all other important information related to the video. If you know of any mods that you thought should have been in the video, feel free to leave a comment with the mod name and I'll be sure to take a look at it and add it to the pinned comment and give you credit. Lastly, and as always, if you have any ideas for future videos, just let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to keep it in mind and perhaps even make it into a video like this one. And of course, give you a shout out for the idea. See you next time. Thanks for watching.